Intel selling faulty chips?
And some sad news as an IT pioneer passes away. This and a lot more on the High Tech Countdown. Hi, I'm Shane Sheck, Editor-in-Chief of IT World Canada.
And I'm Paul Dunley-Bletto, the editor of CDN Computer Dealer News. Some surprising news off the top, Shane. Intel is going to allow vendors to use their Sandy Bridge chipset. Now, if you recall, last week they announced a massive recall. There was a flaw in that technology. Sandy Bridge is the code name for the Core I processor, by the way. But they're going to, I guess, waffle on that and allow the vendors to purchase them for their computers. I think this is a recipe for disaster. What do you think?
Well, I think this is a road that Intel has gone down before in some senses. This is the company that originally managed to bounce back from the Pentium flaw, and with each successive generation of processors, there's been some bumps along the way. What's weird though is that they're actually letting these into market and allowing OEMs to kind of take their responsibility. Maybe you can shed a bit of light on that.
Yeah, supposedly they're going to allow their vendor partners to build on the Sandy Bridge technology if it does not impact the performance of these computers. If the flaw doesn't make a difference, then go ahead and start building these computers. But I don't know what customers are going to think about that. I don't think they're going to be too pleased with their product having any kind of flaws. And us folks in the press are going to be mentioning this time and time again. So I'm not sure why they're doing this, but I guess they're going to give it a shot.
Some sad news this week as Ken Olson, the founder and IT pioneer of Digital Equipment Corp., passed away this week. He was 84.
Yeah, Shane, Olson's time is not going to be too kind to Olson's legacy here, but he was the star of the high-tech industry before Steve Jobs of Apple and Bill Gates of Microsoft. He is the inventor of the mini computer, and he created the Alpha chip, which was the fastest running processor for a period of 5 years, which was an outstanding accomplishment. Intel later acquired it through a lawsuit. I met Ken Olson a long time ago. I was just a kid. I was 21 years old, but I was really impressed by the man. And he introduced me to Henry Kissinger and Bill Gates at the time, so he was also very powerful. He was a bigger-than-life character, like he was a multimillionaire many times over, but he still drove a Ford Pinto to work, and he bagged his own groceries. But I think the downfall of digital, which was known as DEC, Digital Equipment Corp., was they were too late to the PC game. Their product was called Rainbow, but it was too expensive and didn't run some of the popular applications at the time. Digital was later acquired by Compaq in 1998, and in 2002, Compaq was acquired by HP, and you can still see some digital product in the HP product set. But it was sad to hear that he passed on.
You can define legacy in a lot of different ways, and one is the products and do they live on, but I think a lot of it is also the people. And much like Nortel, where, obviously a company that fell on troubled times, but the amount of talent that passed through that organization that has now, fed so many other organizations. And to me, what really defines somebody who's a true veteran of the IT industry today is when they'll mention in passing, well, yeah, I used to work at Digital.
IBM held its annual Lotus Fair conference in Florida, and joining us here to talk about it is IT World reporter Kathleen Lau. Kathleen, you interviewed the chief executive of Lotus, who's a Canadian, Alistair Rennie. What's your take on him and his new designs to change Lotus's platform?
That's right, Paolo. I did have a chance to speak with Alistair Rennie following the keynote. And as you may know, he's now 1 year into his role as GM for Lotus Software and WebSphere. And what I found really interesting, Paolo, is that he was very different when I spoke to him in person than when he was on stage. And certainly when I spoke to him during the interview, he was very vocal about championing IBM's Lotus platform. And he even took some interesting jabs at some rivals in the collaboration space. But he did none of that on stage when it really counted. And I really think he needed to champion and cheerlead for IBM Lotus developers. And of course, it was very difficult not to compare him to his predecessor, Bob Picciano, who had given parts of the keynote the year before. And Picciano was incredibly vocal and aggressive in really championing the Lotus platform and talking about how wonderful it was in the collaboration space. And also he was very vocal about talking about how terrible and desperate some of the rivals were in the collaboration space as well. And I really think that Rennie should have done some of that. But as you mentioned, I did speak to Rennie during an interview following that, and he also really expressed a desire to broaden the perception among customers of the Lotus platform. And today, Lotus platform is a lot more than just an email platform. It is now a social platform, a messaging platform, a mail platform. But customers don't necessarily know that. And I think that one challenge that IBM faces now is trying to re-engage those customers that perhaps might have migrated from Lotus Notes way back when onto Microsoft Exchange, and they haven't really looked back at the Lotus platform and its new capabilities today.
It must be the Canadian in him or something like that. But there was a lot of star power at Lotus Sphere. I mean, acclaimed actor Kevin Spacey, the star of Usual Suspects and the movie Seven, along with our own RIMD co-CEO Jim Balsillie, were there to talk about Lotus and how they use it, and also announce products like Symphony and the social networking toolkit. Tell us why they were there and some of the products that were released.
Well, that's right, Paolo. There were some news announcements that were made on stage, as well as some notable guests on stage as well. As for the news announcements, IBM announced its Lotus Symphony, which is the web version for its office productivity software. It also announced the Social Business Toolkit, which is an integration toolkit for enterprises to then integrate social collaboration into their existing enterprise apps. As you mentioned, Jim Balsillie was one of the notable guests there. And not surprisingly, Balsillie was there to try and pitch the collaborative capabilities of the upcoming tablet, the Playbook. So I thought his presence there was rather in line with the fact that IBM also had expressed its intention that year to really extend that social software into for mobile platforms out there. For example, RIM, Apple, Google, and Nokia. Another notable guest, of course, was Kevin Spacey. And every year, as you may know, Lotus Sphere has a surprise guest. And that surprise guest always has some connection somehow with social collaboration. And of course, Kevin Spacey's connection was that he is one of the executive producers for the very popular movie, The Social Network, which is about, that's right, which is about the creation of Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg. And so it was rather interesting to hear him speak about social collaboration and how also that played a role in his own profession as an actor. And I couldn't help noticing, Paolo, that when Kevin Spacey's name was announced as a special guest, that there was a bit of a delayed response among the audience. And I'm not sure if it's because William Shatner was the previous year's surprise guest, so I think Spacey had some big shoes to fill there. And of course, we all love Kevin Spacey, but he's not quite William Shatner.
Well, definitely a lot of Canadian content at the Lotus Sphere conference this year. Thank you very much, Kathleen, for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Paolo.
Well, Shane, I got a press release this week from Symantec regarding its Norton product, and they took a survey of the top web searches from kids, including kids from Canada, and I was quite surprised at some of the top searches. But the number one search item, do you want to take a guess on who it is?
Ken Olson?
No, it's Canada's own Justin Bieber, which isn't surprising because he's very, very popular nowadays. But the number two person was John Lennon, which is definitely a surprise. He beat out number three ranked Lady Gaga. What are your thoughts on that?
I just can't believe more people aren't searching for you.
You're way more popular than I am. But you know what? Number four really intrigued me. It was Dynamite. So I was thinking, some of the kids maybe, wanting to play with explosives, but it's actually a song title by a guy, or maybe it's a girl named Tayo Cruz. Never heard of him, if it's a him. But most of the searches were about songs. So I guess that's what the teenagers and kids are interested in these days, according to Norton.
And Paolo, if you're not sure who Tayo Cruz is, I think it's time for you to do some searching on the internet. That's all we have this week on the High Tech Countdown. I'm Shane Schick for IT World Canada.
And I'm Paolo Dunningbletter for CDN Computer Dealer News. Click on us next week. Thanks for watching.